Good morning, American history. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a good Easter weekend, Good Friday and Saturday, and then having Easter Sunday yesterday. Hope you had a good time with family and friends as we got to celebrate the resurrection of our Lord Jesus Christ. For American history this week, we are starting World War I. The war between multiple countries. That's why it's called World War One. It was like one of the first major wars where a bunch of countries were fighting against each other. And we're going to look at the cause of World War One today, and then some new developments in weapons and how they helped aid the countries in getting victories and winning, and also how those would also be used in future wars and help also provide the necessary things to help with weapons in other wars. As far as, because they made this weapon, they were able to help study it, able to experiment with it, and make it even better for future wars. And so we're going to look at those two things today. Well, how did World War One start? How did it start? Why did we have this first World War? Well, in 1914, on June 28th, in Sarajevo, Bosnia. Can you say that? Sarajevo, Bosnia. Someone shot and killed Archduke Francis Ferdinand and his wife. And you may be like, well, why did this happen? And who is this person, first of all? Well, Archduke Francis Ferdinand, he was the next in line to be king in the country of Austria-Hungary. Austria and Hungary were one country at that time, and the other two separate countries, and that would happen later on in history. But they were one country during this time in 1914. And so Austria-Hungary, they sent Archduke Francis Ferdinand. He went to Bosnia, to this area in Sarajevo, because Austria-Hungary was about to add new territory, new land to their country. Just as the U.S., we talked about them, how they added, the Philippines as far as a territory. They added, other things. This is what Austria-Hungary was doing. And before we continue, you want to take notes on these because you will use what I say, for the worksheets that we have that I'll have for you this week. On one of them, concerning this first part of like World War One and how did it start and who was involved, I will have a worksheet with sentences, and there will be something missing in that sentence, and you will have like a phrase bank or a word bank, and you have to put that phrase or word in the correct sentence. And so that's what one worksheet will be. Another worksheet will be about the weapons, which we'll talk about in a second. That will be, I'll have a description of the weapon, and you will have to put the correct weapon or word in for that. So it's like matching definitions, basically. So, but you want to take notes on these, and you can use it on your worksheets for this week. So, Archduke Ferdinand was, looking at territory that Austria-Hungary was going to add to, its country, at more land. And Serbia did not like this. The country Serbia did not like this. They thought that the land that he was scouting out should be their land. They were like, that should be our land. So we need to do something about this. So a group of nationalists, people that were very extreme and really cared about their country, but they would use extreme measures to get things done instead of doing things in a peaceful way. What they did is they sent a guy who was 19 years old, and his name was Gavrilo Principe. Gavrilo Principe. Say that, Gavrilo Principe. And so at 19 years old, they sent him, and he is the one that shot and killed Archduke Francis Ferdinand and his wife. Well, he was a big deal, Archduke Francis Ferdinand. He was going to be the one that would be the king next. And so this was a huge deal. As a result, the way Austria-Hungary responded is they, said, well, this guy's from Serbia. They sent him to, kill us, kill our king, our future king and his wife. And so we're going to declare war on Serbia. It's their fault. We're blaming them. And it wasn't all of Serbia's fault. It was, people from Serbia, but it wasn't like it was the Serbian government saying we need to do this. So Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia, and as a result, Russia, they would take the side of Serbia. They were both very close in geography, but also close in their relationship. And so Russia would help Serbia in this upcoming war. Well, then Germany says they would help Austria-Hungary. And so now you see what's starting to happen is other countries surrounding the two that were in conflict where it started, they're starting to help different sides. And more countries would help out. Later, France and Britain would join Russia and Serbia. And Italy was at first with Austria-Hungary, but then they switched over to help Serbia. And the two groups, as these groups of countries started to form, they had two names. One was the Central Powers. And the Central Powers, the countries that made that up, were Germany, Austria-Hungary, Bulgaria, and Turkey. Now, Italy was a part of that, but they ended up moving sides, so they are not a part of the Central Powers. So Germany, Austria-Hungary, Bulgaria, and Turkey were part of the Central Powers. The next group was called the Allied Powers. And this was Serbia, Russia, France, Britain, and Italy. They were known as the Allied Powers. And so you see these countries are gathering together. They're going to help one another. And that's why we call it a world war. Many countries in the world are at war with one another. It's not just two different countries. That would just be a regular war. This is a world war because it's affecting not only just those two countries, it's affecting several other countries, and it would later affect even more, getting the U.S. involved, which we will talk about later in this chapter. So, as a result, they're preparing to fight. They're getting ready to fight, and neither side really had an advantage. They were fighting, and no one was really getting further. And so then we see different strategies, different weapons. And one of the strategies and the way they were fighting was called trench warfare. Trench warfare. What they would do is soldiers would dig a trench. It would be where they could jump in and they could hide under to protect themselves from being shot at and from being attacked. And so they built, the deeper the trench, the more protection you have. Now, of course, they would have to climb up there to try to attack back, but in order for protection, it was very useful and effective. And so, trenches, they would also have sandbags at the top and in front of the trench to protect them from, attack and being shot as well. I have more about trenches. I will have a link for you with this worksheet regarding the weapons and stuff, and so you can learn more about trench warfare. And it's very interesting about how the life was in there and all what was going on there. And so trench warfare, that's how both sides did it. Well, then in the middle, so you'd have, say, the Central Powers over here, you'd have the Allied Powers over here. Well, in the middle, remember they're both in their trenches. In the middle, what you would have is called no man's land. No man's land. You don't want to be in no man's land. For one thing, it was called no man's land because there's no man in there. They were both in their trenches. They're on both sides. Another reason it was called no man's land is because you didn't want to be in there. If you got in there, you were an easy target. Think about it. If you are here and you go up from your trench and you're out here, this other side, they'll just be in their little trench and they'll be shooting at you. They'll be attacking you. And so no man's land, you did not want to be stuck in there. Because if you were, it was a good chance you would not make it out alive. So no man's land. No man's land was really covered, really, I guess, on the outskirts with barbed wire and landmines. A landmine was something that if you stepped on it, it would blow up. And so you would not want to be involved with that. It would, it would be terrible. It would, like it's just blowing up, It was one way that it was sneaky because you couldn't tell where they were. They later would figure out, I guess, how to do that. But landmines were an easy way or a very efficient way of how people eliminated multiple soldiers. So, more weapons. Well, Britain, what they developed was called the tank. So you know how you see maybe tanks on TV or in movies. Well, Britain was the one that developed the tank. The tank was an armored vehicle that could shoot while moving on caterpillar tracks. Have you ever seen the bottom of a tank, and how it moves around? Those were the tracks, and so it's able to just go around and go around. The tank was, an armored vehicle. You shot at it. I mean, it's armored, so it's really not affecting it if you just shoot it with bullets. It had like a cannon to shoot out and could run over really anything. There was not really any area like land that it could not run over. Now, it could be flipped over, and so that would be a problem. But as far as going across, whether it was rocks or anything, it could go over that. So you had the tank. So Britain developed this, and so that was good for the Allied powers. But then the Central powers, the side with Austria, Hungary, and Germany, they would find out how to make some, and they would make their own and make it, how they wanted to and add different things. And so you have the tank. Well, in 1915, a year after the war started, Germans released a deadly, very deadly weapon called mustard gas. It was a gas, and specifically it was called mustard gas. It was very deadly. It would kill several soldiers at a time. They would release this gas through like a kind of like a grenade, only it wouldn't blow up, as far as an explosion. It would release like the gas. And so mustard gas was very deadly and killed several soldiers at a time. In response to that, the gas mask was made, and so it protected them from the mustard gas. Germans also had something similar to a blimp. You ever seen the commercial about the Goodyear blimp or the blimp with Snoopy on it? About real estate and stuff, or MetLife, not real estate, MetLife. Well, anyways, that's a blimp. And so the problem with those they were good things as far as they were very attack. You could see everything, but they moved too slow. And so instead they moved to airplanes. They started to use airplanes. And so both sides developed airplanes. Machine gun was also invented in World War I, shooting multiple bullets, at a time instead of just, one firing, just barely. It'd be firing, a bunch at a time very quickly. And these were added to airplanes. And so an airplane, it could, hover, swoop down and just, shoot a bunch of bullets at a time instead of just firing just, one at a time. And so the airplane, was very good as far as it, you could see a bunch of things. You could move very fast. It was hard to attack as far as defend yourself against an airplane and to knock it down. And so you have the airplane. Well, battles would happen in with airplanes, in the air. They'd be, just flying around. And what these battles in the air were called dogfights. They were called dogfights. Some other weapons and resources used were automobiles, mines. We talked about them. You step on them and they just blow up and they just kill multiple soldiers. You had grenades. You pull a little pin, you throw it, and once it bounces and hits, it explodes. Another important thing that Germans really started using first of all was the submarine. You're underwater and you're able to have a little periscope, and you're able to see what's going above water. They don't know where you're at or who it is or anything. And so it became very sneaky. And we'll talk more about how Germans used that against the United States. But they would call them U-boats, and they were under the surface of the water, and so you couldn't see them. And really, people, because they were new, they didn't really know what they were. But these weapons were very important in World War I and would be used by the countries and fighting against each other and advancing for victory. And not only that, these would help, for further weapons in the future for World War II and other wars as well. And so these weapons were very, very efficient, very important, and very help to win the war. And so next week, what we're going to talk about is how did America get in World War I? Why was the cause? What benefit did it have? Why did they need to get involved? The details of that, and just how they prepared for the war as they decided to be a part of it and join it. For this week, like I said at the beginning, you will have 2 worksheets. One worksheet will be on the first part of why the war started and the details of different things like that. And so I will have the description and directions on Schoolworks, but you'll do that worksheet. There'll be something missing in a sentence, and you will have to put the correct phrase or word in the right sentence. And so you'll do that. And then the second part will be about the weapons, and you'll be trying to match the correct term, the correct name of the weapon, with the correct description. And so these are going to be due on this Friday at 5 o'clock. Friday at 5 o'clock. Hope y'all have a good week. If you have any questions, just let me know. And but like I said, hope you enjoy learning about World War I.